Everybody say hi to Terry, who's
Hey,
here. His movie is coming out on November 1st on Hulu.
yeah,
Uh,
there's
you know,
quite a story around that, actually.
yes, so you know what? Let's start. Thank you so much for being here, Terry.
You're
And
welcome. Okay. Well, I started in the business. I'm originally from the United Kingdom, and I started I directed episodic television for the BBC and ITV networks in the UK. And I had a lot of fun doing that, and I was lucky I had a lot of successful shows. And I think that really helped me when I transitioned into screenwriting because episodic television directing teaches you discipline. When you get a script, you have to look at it and say, can this be shot in the time frame and on budget within our structure? And that's looking at things like how many additional set builds are there in this episode? And if there's too many, how do we rewrite a scene to put it in an existing set that we have? How many exterior shoots do we have? How many night shoots do we have? Do we have any scenes involving young children that need on-set supervision? All of those kind of containment things that episodic direction is all about. And I think that really helped me when I transitioned because when you're writing, you know the red flags that a producer is going to be looking for. And so you can avoid a lot of those by disciplining yourself to write accordingly. And now when it came to the Hulu movie that's coming out this week, Christmas on the Ranch, the story there was that I didn't tell my agent I was writing it. Because if I'd have told her, it's a romantic drama that happens on a ranch at Christmas time, but it's not a Christmas movie. And if I'd have told her I was writing it, she'd have talked me out of it because her relationship is with producers who produce Christmas movies, for the most part anyway. So I wanted to write it, so I did. And then when I'd finished it, I delivered it to her. And at the same time, I put the logline and the synopsis up on Inktip. Well, the day after I delivered it, she called me and had the conversation I was expecting, which is, I loved it. I love the story. I love the characters, but I can't move it because my producers are looking for Christmas movies. And so I said, well, leave it on the shelf then, because it is what it is and it's the way that I want it. The day after that, Chris Charles from Throughline Films contacts me. He'd seen the logline and the synopsis on Inktip. And Throughline Films has a holiday label called Very Merry Entertainment. And Chris said, Very Merry is looking to make a Christmas romance set on a ranch. Well, hello, that's just what I've written. So Chris said, well, can I read the script? So I had my agent send him the script and he got it and he really liked it. He passed it to his business partner at Throughline, John Boscher. And John read it and really liked it. And at that point, they optioned it. As soon as they optioned it, they sent it out to their distribution agents for assessment because they want to know how sellable it is. So a few days after that, the feedback comes back that is very positive. They really like it. It's very sellable. They particularly like one component of it, which is I'd included in it, the rancher runs an equine assisted therapy program on the ranch. And that subject interested me because it's not just about people with mental and physical disabilities. It also impacts those who are in high stress environments like first responders, veterans, etc. So I'd incorporated that into the script. And in the script, Corey runs that program. He and his wife, Susan, had split up 3 years earlier, and she was now living out of state. She wanted him, she retained a 50% ownership of the ranch, and she was wanting him to sell up to cash out, and he was wanting to keep the equine assisted therapy going. Well, the distribution agent said to John and Chris, enhance that component because that gives you a 100% guarantee you're going to sell this script. So that then became, okay, now we need to enhance it. So at that point, Chris and John introduced me to their script editor and their script editor took a look at it and put a fresh pair of eyes on it, which was great. And he spun it and said, well, look, why don't we have it so that instead of Susan and Corey splitting 3 years earlier, what if she passed away and she was passionate about horses and that he set up the equine assisted therapy program in her honor. And that's why he and his daughter are so heavily invested in it in terms of emotionally. And that's why when Christina comes to stay on the ranch, she feeds off that energy. And that's what makes her then want to do a podcast of her show from there. So that rewrite not only enhanced the script, but improved it. And as soon as that was complete, Chris and John knew they had gold, because now they had a very sellable product. So they funded it. They shot it in the first 2 weeks of December of last year. They did the post. They took it straight to Hulu because Very Merry had a top 10 hit with Hulu that year. And so there was a great relationship between Very Merry Entertainment and Hulu. They took it to Hulu, bought it, and it drops on Hulu, I think, this Friday. So it's just one of those things, Isabel, where all the fates aligned. I wrote this thing because I wanted to, even knowing my agent wasn't going to be very happy about it because she was going to say I can't sell it. But my gut said, this is a good story, and I want to write it for that reason. And if it goes, it goes. If it sits on the shelf, it sits on the shelf. But everything dovetailed together. And I got lucky with it, and it flew. And so it's just one of those things where you hear all the horror stories where a lot of writers, they just can't get anything read, they can't get anything. With me on this particular script, it was the opposite. I just wrote it blindly, and literally the day after Stephanie called me to say, I don't think I can move this, Chris called me to say, hey, we love this. This is what we're looking to do. And so it just all came together that way. And so that's where we are with it.
Yeah, one day must be a record, to be honest.
Yeah. It's just, and to me, it was all new, and the process and the contracts and on-screen credits and all that kind of stuff was new to me. But my gut told me it's a good story. And
now we jumped ahead in the sales, but tell us how did you start writing? Like, you moved.
It had always been I always wanted to write in retirement. I never had time when I was directing, because you work so many 12 and 14-hour days. There's just not the time to do it. But it had always been my goal to write in retirement. So I kind of put all the pieces together. I made sure I went into retirement with no debt. I paid off the mortgage. I paid off the car notes. I didn't have any credit cards. Because I thought, I'm never going to earn a penny writing, right? So I don't want to go into this with any debt. So that's what I got my agent, and that was good as well, because again, I was so lucky. I sent one email, and that was it. So I targeted who I wanted, because she had the right access to the right writers and the right producers. And I sent her an email that said, the subject line, Isabel, was former award-winning director looking to make us both money. And then the text of my email was one word, interested, ? Smiley. And I got back a response of 2 words from her, which was how much ? Smiley.
Terry, it's exactly, I always tell everyone the subject line is like key, because
Hook 'em.
How you get to know. So please repeat that subject line, and you guys don't do that, because of course you're not acting as that.
Literally, I wanted to hook her with that, because these agents are bombarded with emails. So I wanted to something in the subject line that's going to make her think this is different. And it said, former award-winning television director looking to make us both money. That was it. And when she clicked to open the email, it literally said interested, a ? And a smiley. So that was it.
You basically didn't pitch log line, didn't put anything, just that.
Just that. She then said, send me your script. And I sent her the script that I'd written. 2 days later, she sent me a representation agreement. And then 3 weeks after that script was optioned. So it all clicked in for me like that. And I feel for I hear the horror stories, and I've heard it from you about people who've written hundreds of emails and hardly got a response. Well, my lucky ass got one email. So I count myself very lucky.
Yeah, but I have to tell you, everybody does the same thing. And I get results as well. I had a talk with writers this week, and they were like, oh, so what's your percentage of response? I'm like, well, when I send an email, people answer me.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
but I don't, and I'm trying to teach everyone like the tone, the way you present yourself,
Yeah.
you weren't saying, you see, I often tell in queries, people are like, oh, please read me, please read me. Terry did not have this approach, right?
No.
Very similar approach to me. Say, how can I help you make money? How can I help you make your life easier? And it's the same.
What I really did, Isabel, was I put myself in the position of the agent. I'm sitting in my office and I'm deluged with emails that I don't want every day. So what's going to catch my attention? And that's what I did, and said, okay, how about this? I'm different because I'm not a newbie. I know how the business works, but I know it from a different perspective. So that's why I constructed the subject line to make her think, oh, well, that's different. I mean, then what's he got to say? And then all he had to say was one word. So,
And you saw how he didn't even try to push. And also, like, Terry, tell us a little bit about your life as a TV director, because I know that there's a lot of projects that you have directed that we know all know, and how you made your way to America. Tell us more about your background.
yeah, I mean, I was a technical director before I was a director, but I always wanted to direct, and I was with the ITV network at the time, and I started directing. I was lucky to get a traineeship. I doubt these even exist these days, but I was a trainee director for one of the major companies in the ITV network. And then you got to do everything because you were like a sort of polyfiller. Wherever they put you, you had to direct church services, you had to direct sport, you had to direct everything so that you could show them that they could place you anywhere. And then you managed to sort of veer your way towards where you wanted to be, which for me was in the sort of comedy drama sitcom area. And that meant working with actors, it meant working with writers, it meant starting with a blank sheet of paper and building something, it meant casting, all of those things. And that's what I loved as a director. I never loved all of the nonsense that goes on with the suits. I loved being in a rehearsal room with actors and working it and taking something and improving it and then presenting it and making it work. And so I really enjoyed that, but it was always my goal was to end up writing. I got to America because I met an American girl and we got married in 1995, and we had to decide, well, where are we going to live? And her family is from here. And she loved London, but it's cold and wet and very expensive. So okay. Well, then I figured, okay, well then we'll come out here and try it. And originally I was going to go to the West Coast and pick up my career in LA, and I signed on with a major agency out there, and I shadowed on a few shows. I shadowed on Third Rock from the Sun and on Friends with a couple of Jimmy Burrows and Terry Hughes. And that was great for me. And it was just going to be like picking it up. Well, then my wife got a nasty autoimmune disease, which meant for over a 2 or 3 year period, she was having operations. And by the time that was under control, psychologically, she didn't want to go to the West Coast, and I didn't blame her. So I said, okay, well, I'll do something else then. And I had enough tech in my background to get a job in IT as an IT supervisor and later an IT manager with Home Depot Corporate. So that's what I did here in Atlanta, because there was no industry here at that time. Now it's a major industry, but at that time it was local news, right? So I said, okay, well, I'm still going to write later, but right now I'm into a new role. And then as I headed towards my retirement years, I started thinking about the writing. I started putting my finances in place because I really didn't think I'd earn a penny doing it. So, but I was going to have a lot of fun. I do it as a labor of love, and I still do. And magical things can happen, even though we know the mountain can be insurmountable. It happened at the weekend where Justin Wilkes, who's the president of Ron Howard's company, what do they call it? Imagine, put out a post saying, they're looking. So I reached out to him, and he reached back to me and said, send me a script. So today I sent him another romantic drama that fits the criterion that he's looking for within a genre. So things can happen when you least expect it. And as you and I have discussed before, you've got to have a big chunk of luck. You've got to have the talent. But you've got to have a big chunk of luck of something landing on the right desk at the right time. I mean, look at, Christmas on the Ranch. How lucky is that to have Chris, the producer, say to me, well, what we're looking for is a romantic drama set on a ranch at Christmas time. Well, that's precisely what I've read. So, and that kind of thing just it puts joy in your heart when it happens.
Your first script?
Say that again, Isabel?
Is this one your first script?
No, it was about my fourth or fifth script. And I say the first one got optioned. Another one got optioned. And then this one came to, and I can't remember quite why. Because I see a lot of Christmas movies, some of which are better than others, some of which are so formulaic that they drive me crazy. And I thought, I don't want to write that, but that's where most of the sales happen, in that holiday. So how do I write something that could fit in the wheelhouse, but isn't that? And that's where I started with it. And that's when I thought, okay, well, what does it need to be then? It has to have a Christmas backdrop, but let's make it a story. Let's make it a drama that happens to take place at Christmas time, rather than a Christmas movie. And so that's why.
There's a romance, right, though?
Mm-hmm.
There is a romance.
Yeah. And that evolves organically throughout it. But it's not kind of forced on you. And those Christmas elements aren't forced. The only Christmas references you'll see are really, there are Christmas decorations in the background. But I deliberately, in fact, the one thing my agent always had a go at me about was, you got to make it more Christmassy. And I would say, I don't want it to be more Christmassy. I'd rather not sell it. Then I want it to be what I want it to be. And if you can't sell it, you can't sell it, and I'm still like that. And the one I sent Justin today, it's set at Christmas time, but it's a romantic drama. And it's not a Christmas movie. I doubt if I'll get lucky a second time, but at least he's reading it.
Possible you'll get lucky. I feel like you do have a chunk of luck, but
also I'm Irish.
Oh yeah, that's right. So, I think also your scripts are coming at a really good time. I feel like the last couple of years, that because there's so many in that tiny box, that things are starting to, the box is getting bigger.
Right.
Because, eventually, people, if the movies are always the same, people are getting tired. And Hulu and Netflix and some of those streamers, they're not Hallmark. They do want to get on the Christmas wagon, but they do want, even Roku, they want something a little different, so they're not Hallmark.
Right. I've avoided Hallmark. I've deliberately written not to do Hallmark. My manager now, Mike, is saying to me, well, I'd like you to write maybe for Hallmark next year, because that's where the money is, right?
That's what I was going to say. Hallmark has the biggest checks.
Yeah, so I understand it from his point of view. But for me, the challenge is, okay, how do I put it in their wheelhouse so that he can sell it, but still be proud of it? So
were your four, what did you write before the first three? Were they also Christmas movies?
Yeah, the one that got optioned was a romantic drama set at Christmas time. And the producer really liked it. It didn't get picked up because the network said, well, it's not quite Christmassy enough. Right? So there it is. And I said, okay, well then, and Steph came back and said, well, do you want to Christmassy it up? I said, no, I'll write something else. So I set about writing something else, because I can only write what I love. That's the thing. I can't write to a formula. I can only write what my heart is in. And then if people like it, great. And if they don't, I'll do something else and move on that way. I'd rather have 10 on the shelf than try and fit into that. And I hugely respect Hallmark and what they've done. And I know how hard it is for the writers who write those movies to get those movies on Hallmark. But so I hugely respect it. It just is. I think I've told you the story that my agent had said to me at one point, one of the producers she works with had been asked to produce 3 Hallmark wedding movies back to back. And so he was reaching out to the lit agents that he works with saying, hey, anybody got any wedding movies? Well, Steph knew that this particular producer kind of liked my work and said, hey, do you want to write a wedding movie? I said, no. Like, the last thing I want to do is write a wedding movie. I'm the last guy that should be doing that because I don't like them. And I would be doing it just because it's a contract. And there's got to be better people out there to do this than me who would be invested in it, whereas I wouldn't be. I'd be going through the motions to get the end result, you know. And I can't do that. The script I'm writing at the moment is a mystery. So it's a romantic mystery that happens at Christmas time. And I'm hoping that it would probably sit better on movies and mysteries than it would on the main channel. But, Mike, my manager, has met recently with a couple of the Hallmark VPs over there, including the new VP over holiday movies. And I kind of said, so what do they want, Mike? He said, the same but different.
Yeah.
So I said, great, every writer's going to love hearing that. Just give me the same but different. They don't really know what they want. They want to diversify, but they don't want to diversify. They don't want to lose the base, but they want more depth. It's they know it when they see it. That's what it comes down to. And that's how I approach Christmas on the Ranch. Somebody's going to know it when they see it. And either I'm lucky or I'm not. And with that one, I got lucky.
So now this new one is number 5?
Yes.
Wow.
So it's
good, guys,
and I'm loving it, and I take my time, and I don't, I don't try and have it ready by a certain time. I'll tell Mike, hey, I'm outlining. I'll spend weeks outlining because I don't want to start writing the dialogue and the scenes until I know this is a story that I would want to watch. And then, so, I've got like 25 pages of outline material, then I start writing. But the outlining takes me weeks, and then he'll get this new script at the end of December. It'll take me that long to write it before I'm happy with it, and I won't present it until I am happy with it. And then either it goes or it doesn't, and then I'll come up with something else. I think having something in there that's a little bit different is what, in my experience, is what producers latch onto. Certainly the one I sent Justin Wilkes today that's what he latched onto. There's something in there that I hoped somebody would latch onto, and he did, and that's the reason. Because again, these people see so many scripts, and so many of them are so similar that they're looking for something that they can make that's not that. And I think from a writing point of view, I want to come up with something that's a little bit different, but still fits in the wheelhouse of what people know they can sell. Because at the end of the day, you've got to be able to sell it. And that part of it was with Christmas on the Ranch. I knew nothing about sales distribution agents or any of that, or how they would then fund it or any of that stuff. I was saying to Chris, yeah, off you go, right? I wrote it, go do it. Go shoot it. Let me know when it's done.
When you have an idea, from when you start thinking about ideas, how do you latch on to one and say, okay, I'm going to write this one? How do you go about that?
Well, I'll tell you, the one that I've just sent out, I saw a YouTube clip of somebody who had given a DNA sample a year earlier. And that DNA sample a year later saved the life of a child who had aplastic anemia. Somebody spent 30 seconds swabbing their cheek, and a year later, they get called for a bone marrow transplant that saves this child's life. And I thought, what a phenomenal, they've never met, they're thousands of miles apart, there's no relationship, but that unselfish act of swabbing your cheek and sending in that DNA sample ends up saving your life. That's the premise of this movie. I build it into a relationship. They haven't spoken for 16 years because their families were feuding because of an argument between their dads. They meet in New York. They start a relationship together. He gets aplastic anemia and then pushes her away because he thinks he's only got a year to live and doesn't want to get into her to commit to him when he's not going to be around. And then it transpires she's his match. And so that all started from that YouTube clip that I'd seen where a little child's life was saved because somebody gave. That's how it works for me. It starts with an idea, and then I just grow it.
So it went from that. So how long did you tinkle with it before you go, okay?
Oh, months.
Yeah.
That's the outlining process for me, right? So that's the first thing in my outline is YouTube clip. All right. Now, how do I make it not that, but interesting because of that unselfish act of swabbing the cheek and saving somebody's life? So then it's got to be romance. So I got to build the story that they haven't met for all those years. Now they meet. The families are still feuding, but they form a relationship, and then he gets diagnosed, and wouldn't you know it, ultimately she's the match. And because there's anonymity in that process, neither one of them know. She doesn't know that she's the donor. He doesn't know he's the recipient until right at the end of the movie. So that's what takes the work. How do you keep it hidden? How do you keep those layers and keep the audience wanting to when is he going to find out? When is he going to find out? You know, that's what takes me the work. And then when I'm happy with that process, then I start writing it, and then I present it and hope it goes. And Mike really likes that script, and so I know he's pushing it out there. And I took the opportunity to send it to Justin Wilkes because he seemed to want to read it. And he said in his note back to me that he was going to do a deep dive on it and then come back to me with his thoughts. So we'll see if it goes anywhere.
How did you see this post that they made?
It was posted by somebody, a Facebook friend, and it was a repost from something she'd seen somewhere else. And I just thought, well, this is 10 o'clock at night. I'm about to go to bed. So I just sent off a text saying, hey, here's what I got. What do you think? And in the following morning was a text from him saying, yeah, I like this. Send me the script. So I did. So I'll see if anything happens with it or not. But that's how this industry can work sometimes. And I know how frustrating it can be I'm sure there's a lot of people out there probably on this call who've worked their asses off to try and get a break, and it's never come their way because things just didn't line up for them. And then some old fart like me rolls in, and it all kind of just clicks in. That's just how the business rolls.
Yeah, but I mean, yes, it's true that luck has to do a lot to do with it. But at the same time, I can see, and I've we've talked before, so I know this about you. You're not going about it the way that most people are.
No.
And I'm sure, like, in your emails, in the way you communicate, in the way you write, in the way you choose your stories, like, so it's like, yes, there's a luck involved, but at the same time, if 99.9 of everybody does this, and then you do somehow because you're you, and I find myself on that lane often that I'm like, right. I don't know why people respond to me, but when I look at what I do and I look what everybody does, I'm kind of like the black sheep. I'm like, I don't know why my struggles are not the same as everyone.
Right.
My things are not the same.
Right.
Just the way we think, right? And this is what I try to teach, the writers in this room and all the writers that I work with.
Sometimes, Isabel, I think people put layers of complexity in the way of simplicity. They just build so many, it's got to be this, and there's the 9-act structure, and there's this, that, and the other. Write a story that you want to keep turning the page, because that's what a producer's going to do. I always chuckle at all this the posts that in Tip about, it's got to be written on final draft. Nonsense. If you are a spec writer, the producer doesn't care what software you use to write it on. They want a correctly formatted PDF file that they want to make as a movie. It goes to final draft through all of those bells and whistles into development, into pre-production, into production, and stuff. But you don't need. And I've read posts where people say, you'll never succeed in this industry if you don't write on final draft. It's utter nonsense, And I think people buy into that and just put things in the way of common sense. And sometimes it's very simple. As a director, some of the best notes I gave were the very simple ones. I directed Kate Winslet when she was 18, just before she went off to do Titanic. And we were doing a BBC sitcom together. And there was a scene where I went up to her and I said, what you're doing is you're waiting for him to stop talking because you've got a line coming up. Your character isn't thinking like that. You've got to think like the character and not, I'm waiting for him to finish speaking before I come in. And she thanked me for the note, because that's exactly what she was doing. And that, as a director, was just very simplistic. I could see it. in the way that the scene was being rehearsed. I said, no, you're waiting for him to finish. You don't know what he's going to say. You've read the script. Your character has. It's sometimes it's the simple things that you've got to get back to. And that's how I approach writing. I keep my scripts very simple in terms of the storytelling, but hopefully compelling in terms of the actual story.
But I think also because of your experience on set as a director, understanding production.
Yeah.
I started as a producer and I was a streamer first, then a producer, then a director. And then I came to writing through that. So when I write, I understand production.
Right. And that's vital. When I come from the directing side, there's a fine line with writers who sometimes are trying to tell the actor how to perform. And that as a director is going to piss you off. Because again, you're going to put a note through that saying, I know what I'm going to do with this scene. I don't want you telling me 2 lines of what she's thinking. So there's a fine line of you want enough in there so that the actor can latch it and deliver it, and not so much as you're going to piss the director off, And again, you learn those things as having come from the other side as well.
Well, let me ask you, when you're writing, because I know a lot of times writers are directing, and I'm like, no, you're directing here. Like, you're not the director, you're the writer.
Yeah.
Do you find yourself directing when
you're and I have to start. That's why, one thing I always do when I've come to the end of a first draft, I walk away from it for 2 weeks, and then I come back and read it clean. And I will find tweaks and classically what you're saying. Yeah, no, I'm telling the guy how to do this. No. Get rid of that. That's your brain going back into the mode that you were in, But it is a fine line because you've got to put enough in there to show what you have the right as the writer to say, this is how I want this to be. And at the same time, the director has the right to say, yeah, but I'm directing this. So this is how I want it to be. So you ride that fine line. And if you've got the right people, then it all works. And if ego gets in the way, that's when the problems start. Luckily, I've never had an ego. So when it comes to rewrites or whatever, anything like that, I never have a problem with that. If it's improving the script, do it. And that classic example, when Adam did that rewrite of the equine assisted therapy, it was fantastic because it was a fresh set of eyes from somebody who knows what he's doing and not only enhanced it, but improved it. Bang. Thank you very much. Because that helps us sell it and then we all win. So I've never, a British phrase, I've never been piss elegant about people doing rewrites on my material because I know it works. If you can do something that the producer wants it done a different way for whatever, and sometimes it's budgetary, sometimes it's in the very early version of Christmas on the Ranch. There was a scene at an airport departure lounge and an aircraft interior. And all of that went because Chris and John said, no, we don't want any of that. We've got to get her there faster. So I said, okay. So I stuck her in an SUV and then a horse comes into the road and she crashes. So it's fine by me, So we could do it that way. And sometimes it purely is down to the budget. They know what they want to shoot it for. And
sports and pretend inside airplanes are quite expensive.
Yeah. And again, you say, and I'm quite happy with that. The other thing to avoid is hospitals. Because you can never get into hospitals to shoot because they're a 24-hour operation. So, restaurants are easy. You can get in at 9 o'clock in the morning and be out by 11, but a hospital is a nightmare. So these are things that's what I mean about red flags. These are things you learn, certainly on the producing side, the directing side, that you then don't do on the writing side because that's gonna be a red flag to them, But it also should be fun. I have a lot of fun writing. It's a labor of love for me. And I have a lot of fun doing it. When my brain's tired, I walk away from it from the day. Sometimes that's 5-6 hours. Sometimes it's less than that. But whenever I feel tired, I know I'm going to start making mistakes. And those mistakes are going to become rewrites. So stop now, walk away from it. See you tomorrow.
So tell us about your writing routine. What is the day like for you?
I tend to start writing very early, so I'll get up just again because of my history as a director. I'm used to being on set at 7 o'clock to get the most out of the day with the light. So I'm up at 6 in the morning. I'll start writing between 6:30 and 7, and typically then I'll write through, take a brief lunch break, and then I'll write through till about 3 in the afternoon. and that's my day. But if it happens, if I get tired mentally earlier than that, because I'm old now, so if I get tired earlier than that, I'll stop at whatever point I can feel it, that I'm having to struggle to make this work. If I get to a scene late on in the day and I'm struggling, forget it. This is going to be dead easy tomorrow morning. Right now, this is very hard work, and I'm not going to do it as well as I will when I come to it fresh. So from about 6:37 in the morning to about 3 in the afternoon is how I write.
And you work every day?
Yeah. Saturdays and Sundays I'll put in a couple of hours, but I don't put the full day in because I like doing other things.
Ask you about your outline. Do you go with, like, for me, when I do my outline, I know that I need 70 beats. I know that I need to have at least 70 scenes in my outline so I can.
The same, I know that in the sort of 70, 75 scenes is where you need to be. And I don't want to find myself in a situation where the front works great, the end works great. I've got to fix the middle. Because what do we do here that's interesting? Because I've got to keep feeding the story, and that sometimes can be challenging because I can write a fantastic script, but it's only 60 pages. It needs to be 100, so I've got to keep it interesting and without padding out scenes and then making those scenes weaker through that process. So I think that's the challenge, and I find that fun. And sometimes you'll get a light bulb moment where you think, well, what it needs is this component. And there's a component that's missing that you hadn't thought about. And you thought, what if I put that in there? Now I can back reference here. Now all of a sudden I can see the page count. And you get that, and that's what I mean by enjoying the process. I couldn't do it if I didn't love doing it. And that's what I said to Mike when I first signed with him as my manager. I said, I'm not going to deliver you a script in a given number of weeks. I'll deliver you a good script, but it's going to take me as long as it takes me. And he said, oh, that's fine, man.
Let's talk about Mike. How did you get because you had the agent, you told her.
She retired, and she was great for me.
Tired, so you had to find
so I had to find a new one, and so again, that was the second one was 7 emails before I got, but I got 3 responses on the 7 emails, and I was doing the same sort of thing. This one I included my directorial history, and I sent it out and basically said, hey, here's my experience. I've had a couple of options. This is my experience as a director, and I'm looking for representation because my agent is retiring. And I made sure that was in the subject line as well. Not I'm desperate, I'm looking for an agent. My agent's retiring, I'm seeking representation. That tells somebody, okay, well, this guy's already knows the game. Then let's see what he's got to say, as opposed to yet another person trying to break in, So I used what I had, and then one person replied and said, you'd be a good fit for me, but I'm only 2 years away from retiring myself, so I'm not taking any more clients on. A second person said, I'm actually relocating to New York because I'm going into books rather than screenplays. And the third response was from Mike, who said, sure, let's do a Zoom meeting. And we did a Zoom meeting within about 5 minutes. He and I knew we were on the same page because, as I've said to you, he's got so many fingers in so many pies. He's an attorney, he's a manager, he's produced a couple of, he's done a little bit of everything, and he knows everybody. And I said to him, what I need is a conduit. I'm going to write good material. What I need is for you to get it in front of people who might be interested in it, and that's as simple as it works for us. We do a touch base once every 3 or 4 weeks. Which is kind of how are you? As I said to you, he's been in a writer's room with Amazon for the last 2 weeks because he's co-producing some drama for them next year. He's that kind of guy. He can't just be doing one thing. And to some writers, that would be horrible. Well, that's not what I'm looking for. I need a much more dedicated guy. For me, it's perfect because, I need him to have the contacts. I need him to be able to call that executive at Netflix and say, read this. And so that's how it works with him. And he's got a great sense of humor. And he and I love him because he's a straight shooter. And he just calls it as he sees it. And if he thinks you're right, then let's go. And if he doesn't think it's going to work as a relationship, he'd say that, yeah, nice to meet you, but this isn't for me. So
do you see, guys, how, Terry talks and he's a good writer? You see how, like, the way you talk about storytelling, the way you are, I know you're a great writer. Like, and that is something that you have to command, like that, and that's why you're lucky, but
I am, yeah.
is it luck, like, like,
I think some of it you're born with it, and some of it is confidence, and some of it is honestly it's not getting in the weeds of what you read on some of these forums. Because when it comes to the forums like the Inside Pitch, which is great, Chris I think has done a fantastic job with that. But I read some of the stuff in there, and it's absolute nonsense. It's not based on experience; it's based on theory, but with no experience behind it. I'm not going to go in there and contradict and get into a pissing argument, because my rule is I will only post if I have something constructive to say or something positive to say. But I'm not going to get into a war. But I see things that are posted and I think if young writers are believing this, they're not going to get anywhere, because they're going to fall into that trap of doing what everybody else does. Doing what everybody else does means that, let me take you back to when I started as a technical director. To become a technical director at the network company I was with, they had always taken experienced TDs from the BBC. Well, that wasn't any good to me. I wanted a traineeship. So what I did was I did a scale drawing of the production switcher in the control room on cardboard, and I took it home. And when the news bulletins were going out at night, I would be on my piece of cardboard, sitting on my living room floor, doing everything that I knew the TD was doing in the studio. And once I'd done that for 3 months, I went to the head of engineering and said, "You've never had a trainee TD here. I'm your guy. I can do it." And he said, "You're very wrong. You're very young." And I said, "Yeah, but I can do it." So he called my bluff. He set up a mock newscast and said, "Show me." So I did, because I'd been sitting on the floor for 3 months with my piece of cardboard doing all of this. And he said, "Okay." And I became the first trainee technical director that network had ever had. You've got to change the landscape. You can't think like everybody else thinks. You can't do it the way everybody else does it, because then you're just going to be one of the thousands that don't get anywhere. You've got to change the landscape and make it work for you, and you've got to be damn lucky. And I thank God that I've had that lucky component that has come my way. But I've also worked hard at being different, and knowing what to present in such a way that if I'm in that office, I'm going to think, okay, this is interesting, as opposed to, oh God, there's 75 emails in my mailbox and they're all query letters, and so you've got to think from that point of view and try and change the landscape to make it favorable to you in as much as possible, and then just hope you get lucky, and then see where it goes.
Honestly, you've made your luck. Like everything, I keep repeating, you gotta be a writer that gets it. Producers want writers that gets it.
Yeah.
Managers want a writer that gets it, that they don't have to tell you about all these little things, that you get it. And just when you talk to people, you can tell if they get it or they
don't. Because a lot of people, Isabel, talk about structure. They talk about all the nuts and bolts of a script. Well, my parents don't watch nuts and bolts. They watch a story. They don't care about a lot of the things that writers fixate on. They care about, am I interested in this movie? Is it holding my attention? Do I like these characters? Am I warming to it? Am I staying with it till the end and then saying, yeah, I enjoyed that. That was pretty good. And I think some writers get locked into, oh, I can't do that because, the rules say I can't do that. You can do anything if it works. It's like as a director, as I'm sure you know, there's a thing about crossing the line. When you're shooting, you've got to make sure there's an imaginary line that you don't cross. Otherwise, you're going to cut between people who are both looking the same way, and it doesn't look as if they're looking at each other. You've got to understand the mechanics, but that's not what the viewer is interested in. The viewer is interested in, does the scene work? So for me, I trained a few baby directors, it's the same thing. And I see in the writing forum, I wish you weren't so fixated on log lines and those things. But the first script I had optioned, that I told you about, I hadn't even written the log line when it got optioned. It was sent out because of the relationship between the agent and the producer. Said, "Hey, you should read this." And she said, "Okay, send it." So she sent it. So I love it. I wrote the log line after I'd done the revisions, because then she said, "Oh, I'm going to the network on Tuesday. Can you write me a log line and synopsis for it?" So I did, but that was months after it got commissioned. You know what I mean? So I think I understand why people say, "Look, this is all so important. The industry functions around these tools are very important." They are, but don't let them define your life. If you've got an idea and it's good and it'll work, make it work. And then change the landscape so somebody sees it. And then you can say, "Yeah, okay, now we got it through." And then people may say, "Yeah, you got lucky." Yeah, I did, but I made some of that luck. And again, it's putting yourself in the seat of that producer who is sitting there inundated with emails on a daily basis from people saying, "Please read my script." You've got to find a way to resonate with that producer, that it doesn't feel like 1,000 other query emails that he or she has received, and just put something in there that gets their attention.
Like for example, I never ask in my queries to read my scripts. I never.
Right.
I say, "Oh, can we get on a call so we can introduce each other and see how I can help you get your slate?" Or I never ask to read my script, because obviously if I'm putting a log line in there, it means, do you want to read? Like, it's obvious.
Yeah.
And that's what you want, right? You say, "Oh, this is what I have. Can we talk? Can we get, can we get on a call?"
Yeah. And the other thing is competitions. And that's something I have to I see a lot of the, now we all know something like the Nickel Academy is phenomenal, right? And agents and managers know and respect. And there's 3 or 4 others like that. But when somebody is in a forum saying, "My script did really well in the Marlow Bottom Snickerdoodle contest, why aren't producers beating down my door?" Well, the answer is nobody cares. So a lot of those competitions make money off writers who often can't afford to lose that money, because it's just a revenue stream. They don't know who's assessing the script. They get a flowery email saying, "Congratulations, it's moved to the next level." You don't know if anybody's even read it, or if they are, who read it, who's on that board, who's making those judgments. But because it's a competition and they want to be able to say, "I placed," or "I did whatever," they will spend 50, 60, 70 bucks doing that. And it kind of annoys me, because there's 3, 4, 5 that we all know are reputable. And if you're doing well in the Nickel, then you can write. But there's about 50 others that are a complete waste of time and are just taking your money. Yeah, because anyone could set one of these things up and say, "Hey, we got a competition for, the swamps in Florida. Send your script, $55, see how you go, And I think sometimes, that it's not, and I feel sorry, because, it's easy to be manipulated. It's easy to think, well, I've got to do that. That'll give me some kind of standing. But if you talk to managers and agents, they're not interested in that. Yeah, as I say, if you've done well in one of the top 3 or 4, that might get their attention. But anything beyond that, they're really not interested in it. They're interested in, is this script sellable? Can I sell it? And that's and that comes back to Christmas on the Rush, why I didn't have the conversation with my agent, because I know she'd have said, "I can't sell this. It's a good idea for a story, but I can't sell this to producers looking to make Christmas movies." And so I just wrote it anyway. And I'm glad I did, because, everything clicked in for me.
You've seen the movie, right?
No, I've seen clips.
You haven't seen it yet.
I haven't seen the whole thing. No, I'll wait for it to come on before I see the whole thing.
That's so exciting. I'm so excited for you. Do we have questions for Terry?
I've got you had mentioned that you put the script out on Inktip, and I wondered if you could talk a little bit more about Inktip and how you use that. And also, so all the scripts that you're writing, you're basically writing on script. You're writing scripts that you love and you want to sell. You're not doing writing assignments. No, is that correct?
That's correct. Inktip is just a source for me to it's useful to put log lines and synopsis on Inktip, and I get a lot of hits from producers and some major producers who've read those. Now, a lot of people may tell you they've used Inktip and it does them no good at all. But I've had more than 4 or 5 times a positive interaction with producers as a result of log lines and synopsis that I've put on Inktip. And so I did that instinctively with Christmas on the Ranch. And it was literally the day after that is when I had the agent call. And the day after that is when Chris Charles from Throughline, who'd read the Inktip synopsis and logline, said, hey, can I read the script? So again, it's worked for me, Kathy, and I understand that for thousands of others, it may have generated absolutely nothing. And yes, to your other question, I write what I like because I'm retired and I can damn well do it. So I'm going to write what I like. I understand what the industry is looking for in the rom-com genre, and I will write something that fits the wheelhouse. I've avoided Hallmark up until now because they have been too formulaic for me. But I'm receptive to Mike saying, hey, take a crack at them next year. Even though they hardly ever take spec scripts, it's all about who you know. I mean, Mike represents, I think, 2 or 3 Hallmark writers, so he could probably get me in, grandfathered in through that relationship. But it's really with Hallmark about a producer who is a trusted producer for them, bringing on a newbie writer. But I've always found them, up until recently anyway, just too formulaic for me to get my story through. That you have to put all these elements in, and there's not enough room for the story I want to tell. And it starts to feel like 100 other movies. I'd rather not write it at all than write it like that. Now, there's a lot of money to be made. If you can suck it up and say, well, hell, let's do it and take the check, then yeah. And I think there's a percentage of Hallmark movies look like that. They look from scene one, you know what the end is. I hate directorially, I hate those moments when the couple first meet and there's like 3 or 4 seconds where they stare at each other because the director is saying, hey, look, they're attracted. Well, no shit, Sherlock. I can get that out of the writing, and you could be much more subtle about it than hitting it with a sledgehammer like that, So there are things in those movies that I really don't like because, and therefore when I'm writing, I make damn sure the director can't do it. Now, they may want a rewrite to help them to do it, but I'm not going to give them that option up front. And it really comes down to who you are as a writer. And as I said to Isabel earlier, I hugely respect Hallmark and what they've achieved and the number of movies they make. And what I don't like is the cottage industry where they don't really let other writers in. It's very much a who you know business. I'll only get to write for them because of my manager who represents 2 Hallmark writers. That's the only way I would get access to it, not based on ability, but based on, oh, okay, you're one of Mike's guys. All right, well, we'll take a risk on you, And I think that for me, that's why I've always preferred looking at Prime and Hulu and other options, because there's more room there to actually write a rom-com story rather than dropping into a formula that it has to have these elements or they'll reject it.
So as a director, if you're writing a story, if you really loved it and you wanted to find a production company, can you attach yourself as a director?
You could. It's something, though, it's a double-edged sword, Missy, because when it goes up the funding chain, the people who are supplying the money to make this happen may not. It depends how experienced you are, first of all. If you're a newbie director, nobody wants to touch you because that's a risk. And what the guys who finance, they don't have a creative bone in their body. What they're about is return on investment. And they want to know who's casting it, who's directing it, am I going to get my money back and how much? And if you're going to them with a director you've attached who has minimal experience, it's a huge hill to climb to get that funded. It shouldn't be that way. You could say the same thing, and I know, Isabel's passionate about this, about female directors, because they often haven't got the shot because they haven't known the right people to get them into the room. And you can't get the job if you can't get in the room. And I think the industry is very sad in that respect, because they always play the safe. What is ultimately very safe? How do we get this funded? Well, we've got to have all of these things in place. If you never take a risk, you never get anywhere. Years and years ago, when I was directing the multi-camera comedy drama for the BBC, the fifth guy on the camera crew never got to do any work. He was always the one that did engineering lineup. He never got to shoot any scenes. And so on one episode, I said to the senior cameraman, why don't we give Lincoln camera 4? It hasn't got that much this week. Let's give him camera 4 and give him some shots, Well, the senior cameraman was great. And the production manager came up to me and said, oh, what are you doing? What are you doing? This could be overtime. This could be, I said, Julian, shut up. Right. If it's overtime, I'll cut the extras from next week and pay for it. Let's give this guy a shot. Well, Lincoln is now a major director of photography in London because he got a break, because somebody took a chance. And this industry's got to be about people taking a chance on a new director, on a new writer. That's how it grows. It doesn't grow if you're always using the same people who are writing the same way, directing the same way. You never get any growth that way. And I think that, if the industry is anything, it's got to be an industry that actually respects the fact that you need new talent, you need new blood to make it thrive. And they may just learn something. Somebody might come in with a different approach to something and say, well, actually, that's different, but we really like that. And now, as I say, I come from a very fortunate position in retirement doing this, because I write what I damn well want to write. And then I present it when I'm ready. And if Mike thinks it'll go, great. If he thinks I can't move this, fine, I'll write something else. I'm not dependent on income from it. And so I'm very fortunate in that regard. But I was the same when I was directing. I'm going to do it my way because that's why I'm here. At the same time, I understand the framework. I understand the budget. I understand the time. I understand all these things. But I'm going to do it the way I want to do it because it's got my name on the end of it as director. And I wish there were more opportunities for young directors. I know Isabel wants to direct more now. I hope that happens, because you need that new lifeblood and not the same names showing up every time. And no,
like, would you like to direct your script?
No. There are now way better people out there to do that than me. Somebody once said to me when I was directing for the BBC, and I was lucky enough to be directing a big successful series there. Somebody said to me, so, do you have aspirations to direct a movie? And I said, no. And the person said, well, why not? I said, because I would never direct a movie well enough to satisfy me as a viewer. There are movie directors and there's me, right? I'm a very competent director of what I'm doing, but a movie director should be special. Should be bringing special qualities to something that I don't have directorially. So I shouldn't be. Now, the trouble is people do. They get to transition from one to the other. And then what you get, it's perfectly competent, but it could have been so much better if you'd have had some imagination around it, as opposed to somebody coming in and just shooting the schedule. And I think that happens too often. But it's a double-edged sword, because people just don't want to take risks, and because there's money involved, and sometimes you've got to take that risk. That's how the industry should grow, and so now that I've come to this stage of my life where I can actually say, what, I'm gonna work at this, and Mike's great because he knows when he's ready, he'll send it to me. And that's how we roll. When it's ready, man, send it to me, and then he'll start to reach out, because I need him to make the calls that I can't make, and that's what he's really good at. He knows everybody, and I need him to make those calls because I don't know those people, and then they're not going to pick up the phone for me. But I've got to supply him with something that's good enough for him to want to say, okay, then let's go with that, and we'll see if we get lucky.
And how many clients that Mike has?
I honestly don't know. It's not a conversation we've ever had. I suspect he's got so many. If you go to Broadcasting Diplomacy and look at his website, there are so many things he's involved with that he's all over the place because, he does co-produce, he does manage, I think he has directors, he has writers, so he's probably got a whole funnel of people, but he lives on energy. Mike's one of those guys, there's not enough hours in the day for him. And if there was, he'd be bored. So he's not somebody who you would perceive as being wholly to grow you as a writer. He's not that guy. But he's a guy who, if you give him a good script, he's going to open doors and say, you should be reading this. And that's what I need at this stage. My first agent, I needed somebody to open those doors for me in a different way. And I needed to be taught some of it from the writing point of view. I had some of it from directing, but I needed to know certain things that I didn't know, and that's what was great about my first relationship. At that time, if you come up with an idea that somebody said, yeah, that'll sell, that'll work, you could get to the right people to make it happen. And that's what I need my manager to do now. I need to supply him with good enough material that's sellable, that's been thought about and structured, that I know he can reach out to this guy at Amazon or this guy at Netflix or this guy at Hulu or wherever, and get it read. And then when the assessment comes back, I'll look at it. I'm very receptive to that as well. If I see somebody who says, yeah, but it should have been done like this, I'll go back and look at that and say, actually, there's a lot of validity to that. Let me have a crack at it.
You do a lot of rewrites?
Yeah, because I'm constantly, when I start each day, I will go back to the start of the script and read the script up to the point where I'm going to start, because I want to make sure that the rhythm and the flow of the story is right. And a lot of rewrites happen as a result of that process. Little tweaks here and there, little rhythmical things, maybe a contradiction that I've made that I shouldn't have made. So I always, at the start of every day, start from scene one and read right up to where I'm going to start writing. And that's just my process.
I write all over the place.
And everyone's different, There's no right or wrong to it. That's what works for me. So I have that rhythm locked. When I'm now writing scene 40, I know exactly where the story's got to and how we got there. So that's what works for me.
Amazing. Jane has a question.
Mute. Terry, I want to thank you so much for being here this evening.
Thank you for having me.
Your passion and your enthusiasm is very infectious. My question is, obviously you came into this writing side of things a little bit later in life.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for your younger self that you might have done things differently or whatever?
Not really, Jane, because I had so much fun directing. I mean, I had so much fun directing for those networks that, it was like being a kid in a candy store, and you were in charge of the thing. And if you were confident enough in your own ability, it was just a blast to work with those actors and to bring something to life. Having cast it, you read the first draft, you get the second draft. Now you've got to go and cast the roles, then you've got to rehearse it. So I love that whole process. So at that time, I didn't have any aspirations to write early, but it occurred to me that writing is really where I wanted to grow up before I could do it. And as a director, I was a kid, but I wanted to grow up before I could write, because that to me is important. And so I got to it at about the right time. I would have, however my life would have evolved, I would have done it approaching my retirement years anyway, simply because that's always been my kind of game plan. And I think I'm a better writer because of it. I don't think I'd have been a great writer in the midst of directing, because I think my brain would have been too fragmented with all of the things that I see in the tip forum. My brain would have been exactly there in terms of, oh, you got to do this, you got to have that, it's got to be this, it's got to be that. Whereas now I'm at a point where it doesn't have to be anything. It has to be what I want it to be. And then when I present it, it's either good enough or it's not.
Well, I think there's no argument that directing has helped you be a better writer.
Yes, it really has, because, as I say, just the discipline of knowing what you have to achieve in that time frame, the discipline of understanding a contained script, of understanding what you can and can't achieve. And you really do episodic television. You are directing the schedule as much as you're directing the actors, because you have to get this done in this time frame. There's no leeway for going beyond that. You've got to hit it, and you've got to be on time, on budget, those performances the actors have got to deliver on the red light. A series I did for the BBC called Birds of a Feather involved three women, two of whom's husbands were in prison. And a next door neighbor who was a nymphomaniac. That was the three of them, right? And it was a great show to direct. But these actresses used to scare the shit out of the producers because they'd be all over the place for the whole of the rehearsal period. I'd be saying, it's fine. I know them well enough to know how they deliver on the red light. And I would say to the girls, don't be fazed by these producers coming through the door bitching. It's all about my mum watches the show we deliver on the red light. She doesn't give a crap about what goes on in the rehearsal room. And as long as you girls deliver, you carry on doing what you're doing. And that's how we ran it. But the execs would come in and they were white in the face because, well, it's day 4. You should be much more polished by now. It'll be fine. And it always was fine. It's just that the suits don't understand the process. They don't understand people. And I think a good director understands people, both behind the screen and in front of it. It's about allowing them to perform to their best. I would do so much of my work as a director before you ever got to the set. I will have worked out plan A, B, C, and D, especially if you're location shooting in England with the weather. Here's plan A, here's plan B, here's wet weather cover, here's how we do it. And what that meant was my crews knew that when they came and shot, they were going to enjoy the day. They weren't making it work. They were going to come and enjoy the day because they knew if this isn't working, I'm going to plan B, and where we were. And that I think is how you get quality. If your actors trust you because they know you understand them and you have that rapport, then it's easy. And outsiders don't get it because what they're looking at, it looks like chaos. But I know what it's going to be when we stick the red light on and the bell and it all comes together, and to this day, a very senior executive producer would say to me, I don't know how you made that series. Because I would come into that rehearsal room and I don't know how you made that series. And I would say, I know, that's why you're an executive. Go and exec.
That's a gift. Well, so was it hard for you not to go watch any of Christmas on the Ranch be filmed?
No, I actually didn't want to. Because I've been on so many sets and I trusted Chris and John, and it was a good director, Danny. I knew once we'd done that rewrite with the equine assisted therapy, I knew that was a rock solid script. And I knew that it was almost impossible to screw that up. The casting was very good. Jade Holloway is the lead female. She was going to carry the movie. And I knew Jade's work and I knew that she'd be perfectly fine with it. So I didn't want to get on a plane and schlep out and be there for any of that. Again, probably because I've been on so many sets as a director over the years that I just had kind of no desire to do that. But I understand how certainly younger writers would be hot to get out there, certainly for the table read and all of that. And to each his own, for me, I had said, once we had that completed draft and, they shot it in the first 2 weeks of December, that's cold. No, thank you. So off you go.
Thank you for all that.
You're welcome. You don't want to in any way cramp the director's style because he or she is then making that movie and it's theirs, and you've got to trust the process and you've got to trust them to do that. And so I wouldn't want to be in the way of that process. And the clips I've seen, fantastic.
Who's the director?
Danny, and Danny Boudet, I think is his last name. He's done some Lifetime movies and things, but he shot it. I mean, the clips I saw, I was looking at it purely as a director. It's well shot, it's well lit. There's nice depth of field. There's all of the things that I would look at as a director. I thought, as soon as I'd seen the first 10 seconds, I thought, this guy knows what he's doing. It's fine. So it's that. Now I'll see it when it goes out on Hulu, and the Hulu executives really liked it. And so they jumped all over it. So that's a good sign because these guys are kind of predisposed to say no a lot of the time, and so that's a very good sign when the suits like it, then you're winning the game.
And Hulu has this, movies 1 to 10. So hopefully we see your film on the.
Yeah, and Mike likes it because Mike likes Hulu as a platform. That will hopefully help me next year. And so, we'll see how it goes. But I hope that writers have the same enthusiasm, and I understand how they must get totally, God, when am I ever getting anything read? How can nobody will read my log line. How do I get anything? How do I climb this mountain? And there's no real answer to it other than just trying to be different, trying to present something in a different way, trying to change that landscape, and hope to God you get lucky. And if you do, you do, and then that can set you on. When I've got Christmas on the Ranch produced, some people started treating me very differently. Oh, well, you're this, now you're this super experienced writer. No, I'm not. I'm the same guy as on Monday when I hadn't got anything produced. But it's Tuesday now, and I do have something produced. Right? I'm the same guy.
Well, I tell you, Terry, though, you will see once you get produced and your movie is out there, it's like you change planets,
Right.
People react to you, the way people perceive you, the way that people,
right,
in every way. And I always tell people, like, if you have an opportunity, even if it's less money, my first deal, it wasn't great. It was a buyout. It was low 5-figure. And I was like, I don't care. I just want to get produced.
Right.
Go from this planet of 99% of writers, and then you jump on this planet of 1%.
Right. And that's absolutely true. And that's what I hope happens. So we can only hope that it continues to grow, because that will afford, and they lock writers out because it's almost impossible to get a spec script through Hallmark. And you come in through the industry, you come in through the cottage industry of the producers who they know, or a manager who reps writers who they trust. That's your way in, but it shouldn't just be that. There should be a way in for gifted writers.
That's the thing. They don't deal with writers. They deal with producers, and the
right.
have to do the screenings. And I keep telling everyone, your goal is to get on their roster. It's the writer that they're going to and say, hey, we want this kind.
They should have like the equivalent of a green card potluck.
Yeah.
Where every year a certain number of scripts come from writers they haven't used before, who can actually get them read by Hallmark by putting them through that process. Even if it was a small percentage, it's a start for people to be able to say, hey, and I bet those scripts would be better than a lot of the ones that end up.
Right. And if they do a green card lottery at Hallmark, I'm winning.
Yeah.
I actually did win the green card lottery.
Oh, you did? Good for you.
I won the green card lottery. I live in the States because I won. I'm also very lucky. So any other questions?
So you've spoken a lot about staying true to what you want to write and only writing what you love. How do you balance that? And can you speak to getting bad notes on a script? You said you've refused to say, or you've refused to incorporate more Christmas in some of your scripts, but have you gotten any other bad notes on your work that you had to?
No, I mean, I'm cognizant of the space. I'm cognizant of what a company is looking for. I just want to elevate. And that's what I've said to both my agent and the manager I have now. I just want to elevate it a little bit so that I don't know what's happening on scene one at the end of the movie. It doesn't have to be the girl goes home to her hometown, meets the boy she hasn't seen through high school, and ends up saving the pumpkin farm. Yeah, it doesn't have to be that, right? Because we've seen it 50 times. Let's put a little bit of a spin on it. Let's keep the elements that you love in terms of how they meet and the romance grows, and then there's the almost kiss that happens. There's the fact that they break up and they come back together. You can keep all of those components, but let's put just a little bit of elevation into the storytelling so that you don't feel like you've already seen it. That's the way I approach it. And then either it goes or it doesn't. But because I'm not dependent on it financially, I'm lucky. I can do that and say to Mike, well, if it goes, it goes. If it doesn't, I'll write something else, But I understand that working writers don't have that luxury. But I think we should always look to improve, because everything good that happens in the business happens when somebody comes along and does something a little bit different. And all of a sudden, that's successful. Take the movie Three Men and Babies, the Hallmark, which wasn't about romance. It was about three of their male stars and a baby. All of a sudden now there's a sequel to that because that was the top rated movie and it had nothing to do with the usual structure of romance. That's what you need. And it only happened because those three established actors said, hey, let's do this. And everyone said, well, if these three are in it, it's going to be a hit, right? So we'll do it. And so what I try and do is just try and imagine it, not taking it so far out of the wheelhouse that people are just going to reject it. But at the same time, putting a little bit of elevation in it. And that's why I've drifted towards the mystery component, because if I can write a good Hallmark type movie that incorporates a mystery and it happens at Christmas time, then it should be appealing because it will have all of those elements that they're looking for. But, oh, it's a little bit different in here. We got this little mystery component. How does that play out then? You know, and I think if you do that, then you might stand a better chance with actually getting it moved forward, as opposed to, well, this is so similar to these other 10 or 15 movies. You've just got to I go with my gut and write it. And as I say, I know where the red flags are. I know, and it used to be, Stephanie and I used to have wonderful conversations. She would be saying, put more Christmas in it. Put more. And I said, there's decorations up. Read it. It says, the office is fully decorated. She said, no, I want more Christmas. So there was this constant banter that went on between us about that, where I would be resisting the Christmassy elements. But Steph knew that that's what you needed to sell. And that's what her producers were looking for. And everybody kind of bows to he who has the money calls the tune, right? I mean, we know these things are deficit finance, but Hallmark are only going to fund it if you're giving them what they want. And the producers know that. So when you go to them with something that's different, they're resistant to it because they're not going to get it sold because you don't have these components lined up. So I think the trick is to give them the components, but to actually just go off a little bit and be more interesting and not get locked into saving the pumpkin farm again. You know, I just think as a writer that you have more to offer than that, and a company like Hallmark should be more receptive to a little bit more, let's give this a go and see how it goes. And now and again they do it. I mean, it's like there's two things that they will not touch. You cannot have the couple living together. You cannot have the couple staying in the same room in a location together. That's a big no-no. And in fact, that was another rewrite I had to do with the Hulu one. Originally, when Christina goes to the ranch, she's staying at a spare room in the ranch house. That got changed to there's rooms that the guys who work for us use, and there's a really nice one of those, and she stays in that. So there was that, and then it's death. They don't want anything where anybody dies. Even the killing off Corey's wife 3 years earlier, we had to be very careful how we touched that, because these guys don't want anything around, and that's what the distribution agents will say: stay away from death or serious injury, because these are things that are historical that they don't like, and producers know if I try and pitch it, they're going to kick it back, because you can't have them staying in the same place like that, and you can't. But now and again, you will see a good rom-com that deals with a subject that actually has some subject matter, but it always comes from a very experienced producer, someone like Dan Paulson, or someone who they trust, because that producer has executive produced for them on multiple projects. So because they have that say, they'll let it through because it's that level of an executive who they trust. But it's all otherwise you get locked into this boring formula that you might as well give it to AI and say, write it then. And I wonder how far away we are from an AI Hallmark movie, because you just plug in pumpkin farm, girl in high street meets boy she hasn't seen since high school. Give it to AI, they'll write it for you.
Following the formula is a lot harder than it looks. I teach it and I do boot camps, and a lot of people struggle.
Yeah.
Actually hit the marks where they.
Oh, and I respect it, Isabel, greatly. I just don't want to write it.
Like, how do you approach in terms of structure? Do you not care about that at all?
No, mine is all about rhythm. I'm writing a story that I want to keep turning the page, and if I'm my attention is being held and the story's advancing, that's how we go. And I know when to introduce people and reintroduce people. I guess that's part of having directed as well as having written. But no, I don't get locked into structures like that at all. I know when I read it whether it works. And I know that somebody who I'm looking to pitch it to will know whether it works. And so I don't get locked in.
Actually, who reads your script when it's done and says, okay, it's ready? Is it
when I'm happy with it, I send it to initially my agent and my manager, and that's as far as it goes. And then if Mike thinks it's good enough, he'll say, oh yeah, I've been on to whoever at Lighthouse, and I'm sending this over, or Brad Crowboy or whoever he thinks is the right person to get the script. I don't present it to Mike until I'm absolutely happy with it. And that's why I said to you, it takes me months, because having completed it, I'll go away for 2 weeks. Then I'll come back and go through it again. That I still won't send it until I'm absolutely happy that it's a story that works, that has warm characters, that you as a viewer want to stay with and follow those characters and the story development. When I'm happy that it hangs in there, then I send it out, and then hopefully Mike's on the same wavelength, and he will send it on out. Now, if he did that and it came back saying there's a whole lot of stuff we need to reshape, restructure, fine. If you're going to make it, I'll restructure it any way you like, because that's how it worked to me. But if you have legitimate reasons for wanting to restructure it, and sometimes it works like that. The example I gave with Adam, his fresh set of eyes on that equine assisted therapy really improved it, because that gave Christina much more of a reason to want to do a podcast from the ranch, because of the energy she was getting as a result of what that meant to Corey and Heather. So it's a classic example of check your ego at the door. And be receptive to the right set of eyes saying, wouldn't it be better if? And I was the same as a director. I would say to the cast on day one, I said, I don't care if the janitor walks by and says, wouldn't it be better if you did this? If he's right, we're doing it. Because if it's improving the script, I don't care who comes up with the idea. Let's now work that, because it's better than what we're doing. And I think that's always been my philosophy. And then when I'm happy with the script and I know I've done everything I can with it, now I'm handing it off to Mike. And if he agrees with me that it's a good script, he will then hand it on somewhere else. If he doesn't, he'll say, I don't think I can move this. Okay, well, now I'll get into a new venture. That'll sit on the shelf and we'll see if it ever goes anywhere. But I always read every scene I'm writing. I read the rhythm of my characters. Because I don't want any two characters sounding the same, because every human being is different. So when I'm constructing a scene, I will then read it through with those characters in the rhythm. I must sound like an idiot to my wife when I'm doing it.
Out loud?
Yeah, and I read it out. And because the delivery, and if I've given somebody a line that just doesn't fit that rhythm, then I'll go and rewrite it, because it would have fitted X but not Y. And that's because me as a writer, I'm crossing over the boundaries there and making them sound the same. So I want to make sure that the rhythm of the speech is different for each character. And then I'm confident that the scene works. And I'm confident that when the actors get it, they'll be able to deliver it, because they'll see, oh yeah, this is who she is. And that's why I sent a little note out on one of the posts about how kind Jade was about this. She sent me a note saying how pleased she was and how she wanted everybody to see this movie and how happy she was. Well, she's at the sharp end. And if you're getting that kind of positive feedback from her, that resonates. And part of the reason for that is I read every scene as her character, so that I knew that those lines of dialogue were going to work. Now you can tweak left and right here, but I knew they were going to work, because her delivery is entirely different to Heather's delivery, which is entirely different to Laura's delivery. And you've got to have that, because when you look at this call, everyone on here is different. None of us speak in exactly the same rhythm and tone. And if it's going to be real, it's got to feel real, you know. And so by the time I've done all of that, I'm happy that it's ready to go. And then it's a question of whether Mike can get it on the right desk to be read. And I'm confident, you know.
That's interesting because, you know, that's Aaron Sorkin does that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he does all the characters. And
Well, he knows. It just helps me. And again, I think that goes back to when I was directing. I would read scripts that way because I knew my actors. So when I got a script and I was reading it through, I knew this is how she's going to deliver that. This is she's going to have a problem with this line. The way this is written, she's going to have a problem with this line, and we're going to change it to be this. And sure enough, as soon as you got to the table read, you could see the pencil putting a big circle around that because that's not how that character would say it. And as a director, you get used to that. And that's one of the things I brought into writing. So yeah, every scene I read out loud to myself like that, sounding like an idiot. But it works because at the end of it, I know, okay, now that the rhythm of that scene is right, we move on now to the next one, you know, and it gives you confidence. Doesn't guarantee anything, but it gives you confidence to know that it will work. And it also highlights something you think, I missed that. That she can't say that because X has said this. So it helps with the contradictions to actually go back and fix things, you know. Wow,
that's amazing. Bev, do you have any question? Bev, we haven't heard from you. You there? Are you here?
Yes, you ruined my idea for my Christmas romance where the girl has to have minor surgery in the hospital. Being a retired nurse, I could see it being simply, you know, in a hospital pretend room.
Right. Well, it depends how many. It depends how much, Bev, how much in the hospital you're using, because producers will tell you hospitals are the nightmare scenario because they can't get access to them. They don't want to build sets. They want to go in and shoot, but they can't get access to hospitals because they're a 24-hour environment. So that as soon as they see hospital, they'll go, how do we, you know? Now, if it's just literally an office type set that you're using, but if you've got wards and ORs and all those kind of things, you're going to get red flag resistance probably from unless it's superb. You know, I'm just giving you my opinion on things based on my own experience. But if you're confident that you can make that work as a story, as a script, go for it, make it work and make them sell it, make them go for it, you know, because you don't want to be restricted based on what anybody else has said. I'm just kind of flagging an overview of things. And my process is just to try and come up with something that's a little bit different that I hope people will find interesting. They want contained. That's the reason Christmas on the Ranch really got going, was the guys who run Throughline Films. They live in Illinois. They had access to a ranch 5 miles from where they are. And they'd already done the deal with the ranch owner. So they had all the exteriors, the ranch living room, the bedroom. They already had it sitting there. They didn't have to build any sets. It was all sitting there and the deal was done. All they needed was a script that was set mostly on the ranch to do it. But I think, you know, as writers, we get immersed in our story, but then you got to figure out somebody's got to shoot this. So you got to be thinking, okay, you know, have you written a scene in a location that is going to require a whole crew traveling to that location to set up and shoot just that one scene? That's half your day gone for 2 pages of dialogue. If you're going to do that, are there any other scenes that could play in that same location or exterior to that location? So you've got to think of it from a production point of view. Is that feasible within and that's what producers refer to as a contained script. The fewer locations there are, the better. The less travel there is. Again, in Christmas on the Ranch, where the ranch is, the little hallmark town where I wrote the walk and talk is 2 miles from there. And so from the ranch to the town is no distance at all. But you don't want the town 30 miles away, because now you've got an entirely different structure to the schedule of how you actually go and get that walk and talk done. So it's just, and I think I'm lucky in having my directing background to that, because that's part of what you look at when you get the script. And you say, okay, yeah, that's feasible. That's okay. That's it. We need to rewrite that scene and put it somewhere else. because there's no way we can accommodate that the way it's written at the moment. It's a good scene, but we need to put it somewhere else so that we can make it happen on day 3. So, and I think if you have an awareness of that as a writer, and maybe, you know, how many scenes have you got where there's literally one scene taking place in a location that may be a one-off find, it's probably worth rethinking that and putting that scene somewhere else. It's just an awareness, but I wouldn't want it to limit any writer's, you know, thinking. Like, the producer will let you know if he likes the script. They're going to let you know anyway about things, that red flags that they found, and they're going to want rewrites done to accommodate what they know is their production schedule. And a lot of that, as Isabel said earlier, is around budget. They know what the budget is for the movie they're going to shoot. You know, in my case, when I'd written The Departure Lounge and Aircraft Interior, and because Christina got there an entirely different way in the first version, and they said, no, that's all way too much money. How do we make this happen easier? I said, well, it's simple. We stick her in an SUV, send her to New York, she gets stuck in Ohio. That got rid of all of the aircraft and the airport scenes, and that's how she gets onto the ranch. You know, and sometimes it can be reported action. Sometimes you might have a scene that you don't actually need because it's a brief scene, but you can refer to it. You don't actually need to have seen that particular scene happening. It can be referred to by a character that tells the viewer what's happened, and you all move on, and you haven't to waste 2 or 3 hours shooting that 30-second scene that really wasn't required. And that's, for me, what the 2 weeks does. When I come back to my script, have I got any kind of nonsense in there that's going to get in the way? And when I read it through, I hope I've weeded it all out before I get to that point, so that there's nothing that somebody can jump on and say, but look at this, you know. So I hope that I've thought it all through to the point that there are no, because I want to make it as difficult for them to say no as possible. And that's one thing Mike told me, because he's been in plenty of rooms selling as a manager, and he said they're predisposed to say no. So you've got to make it so that what you've got is so good, and that there's no tricks in there that they can actually latch onto, so that they begrudgingly say yes.
Terry, some last words. You know, any advice to our writers here that...
Follow your heart, honestly. Follow your heart. Write what you believe in. And don't let people tell you you can't do that because ... Write it anyway. If you believe in it and you understand how to structure it, and you believe it's something that should be made, write it. That's exactly what I did with Christmas on the Ranch, with not a hope in hell of getting it made, because I knew what I was going to get, which is it's not a Christmas movie. I can't move. I did it anyway. And look what happened. The following day, I'm looking for a romantic drama set on a ranch. So write it anyway, and have the belief in yourself, and have the belief that you might just get lucky with it, because that's what happens in this business. And I know the frustration that so many writers have, and I completely get it. But I think, you know, I'm at the stage where I only write what I love. And I think I love the story. I like the character. I hope other people do, but I've structured it in such a way that this should sell. If it doesn't, it doesn't, but it's good enough to sell. But believe in it, and don't write formulaic just because there's a check there. Because if you're like me, your heart's never going to be in that. That wedding example, somebody would have written a much better script than me for a wedding movie, because I hate wedding movies. So I don't want to write it, and I don't want to take the check for doing it. Give it to somebody who's passionate about it, because it's always going to be better. And I think if you do that, and you follow your heart, and you have the wisdom and experience that the writers here have got, go for it. And then let them tell you no, and let them tell you why. And quite often they don't know whether something is classic for Hallmark producers. They're not sure what Hallmark wants at the moment, because Hallmark isn't sure what it wants at the moment. Everyone's kind of playing a game of the eggshells, you know. And so just go with your gut and go for it, and hope for the best.
Well, thank you so much, Terry. We're all going to be watching Christmas on the Ranch.
And if you hate it, let me know.
No, don't, please don't.
I can take it.
And where can we find you, Terry? Can people find you on Facebook, Instagram?
Yeah, I'm on both. As Terry Kinane, I'm on Facebook and Instagram. So by all means,
there's a whole bunch of writers that are going to watch this later. So if they want to, connect with you,
yeah, absolutely.
Don't bother Terry with reading your scripts or his management. He's being a guest.
No, I can't move anything for you.
Exactly.
But it's, I think, if you do go with what your gut tells you is the way to go with this, make somebody listen to you. And this comes back to getting repped is the other side of this, whether you need representation or not. I did, coming from the UK, even with my directing background, I needed representation because I didn't know anybody in the American market, and so I needed that first agent and now Mike to just to get my scripts out there, and because they can open doors that I can't. It doesn't matter how good your script is if you can't get somebody to read it, and most producers are too busy wanting to produce to read query emails and please read my scripts, So it's a balancing act, and that's why I hope that people are fortunate and get as lucky as I got, because and I had a blast as a director and now as a writer. I honestly never expected to earn a penny. I'd said to my wife going into retirement, the reason we're paying off the mortgage and is because I don't think I'm going to earn a penny doing this, but I'm going to love it. And so far it's actually been good for me. A couple of options and a produced script.
It's going to be great for you. I think you're on a roll, and I'm very excited to see what.
But I'd love to know what you think of Christmas on the Ranch when you see it, because it's something I'm proud of. I think it's something that the producers are as well. And it's not a Christmas movie, so
well, make sure you guys watch so we can push that movie up. Top movies on Hulu. Then we are very honored that you came out of your cocoon to come and talk to us.
Oh, this is fine. Talking with writers is fine.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.